is Everyday Expertise, and I'm Angela. And I'm here today with Ian Nichols and Brock Tinsley, members of the NerdRock duo Double Experience. Founded in 2011, the Ottawa, Ontario-based band has released 3 albums, made a viral video game anthem, and toured the globe.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So, how did you both get started making music?
Me personally, I think like everyone else, it was, in the shower, and you realize that that's like the best part of your day is starting it with music and just singing as loud as you can. So, a couple guitar lessons later and a couple failed band projects, and then I came across Ian.
Yeah, that's a very similar story to me. It was one of those, picked up guitar, had a whole bunch of bands in my teens, and then I guess my band met Brock's band. We did a couple shows together. I think it was actually like the 9th year anniversary that our bands played some of our first shows together like a couple days ago. So that's kind of exciting. So we've been at it a while together.
So how'd you get together as Double Experience?
The aforementioned bands we spoke of, Double Experience used to be, rooted in a 4-piece instead of a 2-piece. And that was basically by way of all the members in Ian's band and my band, they went their separate ways, and it just so happened that all the missing pieces kind of fit together. And then, so that was in 2011. And then through a series of efficiency, I guess, we have become a duo. And yeah, it was really I wish it was the stars aligned and Ian and I locked eyes across the room or something. But a lot of, the steps we take as a band are ones that have necessity and, good decision making as opposed to complete accidents.
Yeah. So you have rotating drummers, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, that's one of the biggest shoes to fill, physically and space wise. I mean, touring with the drummers, the difference between Ian and I, going in a 2-seater car or having to rent a whole van. So, over the years we've had, drummers internationally, and that's at least, saved on a plane ticket sometimes. But it's also, in my opinion, one of the easiest instruments to not dictate, but if the song has a certain groove, it's unanimous among people. But trying to outsource Ian, I is impossible. So,
well, he's the vocalist.
He is the vocalist.
I mean, the technology is coming. You can get rid of me, but no, I think it's allowed us flexibility, right? I mean, it's most of the times it's Brock and I with a drummer behind us, but if we so wanted, Double Experience we could have a horn section one night and a key section without it kind of feeling like this is what our band has to be. It gives us a lot of options for flexibility to be creative with our live show.
Yeah, I don't want to sound too callous, but it's our goal is we pledge allegiance to the music, not the people. So it's we see how some bands can be well, we can't have a keyboard solo because we don't have a keyboard player. But with Ian and I, it's very much, and we think with the music that we write, it isn't rooted in necessarily a 3-piece rock sound. It's rooted in what's the best song we can write and how many instruments will it take to deliver that live,
All right, so let's define things a little. What is NerdRock? And what about it appeals to you guys?
I guess in the simplest sense, we always say, the subject matter that we write about, it's important to write what you know. And quite literally what Ian and I know is, we're not these social butterflies going to the club every Friday night, drinking vodka and waters. It's our idea of an entertaining night is video games, reading a book, and not, by way of woe is me, social outcast. It's just we love doing that stuff. So when it comes to writing music, that just seems more authentic to us than the sex, drugs, rock and roll aspect of rock music. And because that's been 40 years of that subject matter, maybe a little bit, Ian and I just figure the only way to innovate on this, machine that is rock music is you have to change the subject matter a little bit.
That's cool.
Anything to add, Ian?
Sorry. It froze on my end for a second. My apologies. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with regards to authenticity, right? I think that's always been important to us as a band. And if you look at artists like a 3 Days Grace, I mean, my life has not been anywhere close to as like calamitous as their song structure. So for us, it just made sense. It's like if you think that what you experience on a day-to-day basis can relate to people outside of your sphere, then that's what we want to do, and want to be able to reach people with our subject matter, because we are not the only two guys in the world that like play video games or think about Dungeons and Dragons or all that stuff. So there are, our people are out there, and we're making music for them.
No, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, not everyone has experienced, like, a lot of songwriters write from, I think, a place of pain usually,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's almost like therapy. And some people say that that's like all writers, whether it's fiction or song or whatever, they have to have had pain, great pain to write. But like, not everyone's like that,
I think the whole like self-care associated with like songwriting, like feeling better after you write or pick up a guitar. I think that's also the same can be said of like escaping in a good book, or right. So it's like I feel like there's a commonality somewhere in there that maybe like bird watching doesn't quite come from a place of pain, but it's a hobby, like it's a valid hobby, but maybe a little bit this artistic world, we're all united in that sort of, it feels better to play guitar, read a comic than some alternatives.
Yeah, I think ultimately music is what feelings sound like a little bit. So it's not like Brock and I try and sit there and create music that is devoid of feeling. We just try and find ways to I guess to get that across in a different way.
That makes sense. So what would be your major influences, would you say?
Other than like, one of the big things about being a nerd rock band is there's not many of us out there. So when trying to listen to, like, I mean, sometimes I feel like when we're asked this question, people expect we're going to list these other nerd rock bands, which, to be honest, would just be like a Led Zeppelin, because they wrote about Lord of the Rings too. But beyond like the obvious rock and nerdy influences, like I think one that might surprise people would be the Police. Ian gets a lot of Genesis comparisons, and sort of just his approach to music and vocals and stuff. And I don't know what would be more influences, Ian, because I think the thing is Ian and I both bring completely different backgrounds and make that Venn diagram that is double experience. It's never really like any one influence, like, because a big difficulty is our band being like, to explain it to someone, it's hard to pick. We're basically just a nerdy blank. It's not as simple to say we're just Iron Maiden, except we sing about, destiny. It's not that simple, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think people are surprised. I mean, Weezer's another band I think Brock and I both like. Brock showed me Coheed and Cambria. I had never really gotten into that band before Brock and I kind of started working together. So, but yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised if you were like, like Weezer are like nerds, like they are nerd rockers. And then when you sit and think about that for a second, you're like, you know what, like that does make a lot of sense. I mean, I think Brock had said this in the past, but their whole worldview is from being pushed into a locker, right? So I think overall, it's like there's nerds out there like Led Zeppelin, right? Where they, like Brock said, right? They sung about Lord of the Rings. So there's all these mainstream artists that touch on our subject matter that you wouldn't even be aware they would be considered nerdy.
And I think to definitely wrap that up, maybe one of the things that doesn't influence us is really nerdy acts. And what I mean by that is like sometimes we get this feedback that there's not enough chiptune aspect in our music, or these other ingredients that make nerdy music. And I think Ian and I are trying to show that you can make traditional rock music and pop music but about these subjects instead of leaning too far to the left and going, and now we're just reciting proper nouns from a video game over, you know, a keyboard or a keytar or something. You know, it's like we're definitely trying to avoid the extremes of rock bands who are miserable at the world and nerd bands who are just kind of pandering. So that's where we're trying to.
Right, you're not making silk after all. Like,
no, exactly. No. We understand it. We appreciate its you know, place within. Like, but we're not trying to make that music so it doesn't influence us or come into the equation when coming up with new Double Experience songs.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this show is very much about process. And so can you walk me through the process of creating a song? For instance, I think your latest single is Love Is Not Just Talk.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about that, like from its sort of conception to the finished product?
Sure. So Love Is Not Just Talk, I think is one of the songs I think we've really been kind of working towards trying to like write more of, right? Where it has this rock and roll feel. It has this kind of pop feel to it, but it with the right kind of wording, like it is absolutely like very nerdy. And I think for me, it was like it started in a summer afternoon. I was like in my room and I was just like writing lines about like Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, you know what, like this could be a really cool song. And I mean, that song I think is a bit of an anomaly because a lot of the vocal melodies and at least like a draft set of lyrics kind of came out of like an hour long session of just like, you know, just writing down and then, you know, I brought it to Brock and then, you know, Brock kind of really helped to bring my basic draft ideas to life.
Mm-hmm.
What I remember most about that song was that it went through like a bunch of different arrangements and choruses because we knew that there was something good to work with, but I think a lot of times you write a song, you kind of got to go around the bend a few times and knock on a few doors and just see like, will this work with this kind of song? You're like, oh, it kind of did, but this does it better. And then you go on all these tangents, but there's that main touchstone of like, we know what we're trying to do. There was never like, some songs you're just clueless, but I think this one was like, we have a good idea and it's just about how can we present it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the actual process of that song in particular was, we knew what we wanted to do, but that almost made it harder because there was sort of an expectation that we weren't meeting no matter what method we tried. Whereas some songs you accidentally find that arrangement and then you don't question it. You just maybe 3 iterations from a certain song, you might find an even better one. But sometimes it just feels so good and satisfying when you land on that you just don't go around the bend that many more times. You just keep pursuing that. So.
Mm-hmm. And so, so you have the lyrics down, you've got the melody, you figured out the melody. And then what was the recording process like?
What I remember about the recording that song was originally it had like a minute-long intro, and it was almost a fight with Al as to why we were trying to do it. So going back to the songwriting thing, like even to the very end, we went into the studio thinking this is how we will bring people into this rock and pop rock song. And it turned out to be very inappropriate. The one thing I'll say, which as a songwriting device in that song, and I'll try and explain this in as few words as possible, but there is something known as a Picard ending. Is that correct, Ian?
A Picardy ending.
You can please explain the Picardy ending to all of us.
Sure. So it's a Picardy ending is when you have a song in a major. Or in a minor key, sorry, and then you end your final note, you swap to like a major tonality. So it's like the last rung out chord after this minor song is this major sounding chord. So it has this like, oh, I don't actually feel that bad about my life anymore because that last note.
But the name of the ending, the Picardy ending, reminded Ian and I of a very specific Star Trek character.
So I was wondering, it's like, this is not just about Star Trek.
So we decided that because Love Is Not Just Talk is written in a major key, we looked for some kind of songwriting device where songs in a major key end in a minor key, and there wasn't a recognized term for it. So we coined what we call the Riker ending, and Love Is Not Just Talk actually ends on a minor fifth chord, which is what we believe is at least the first official instance of a Riker ending. See, sometimes the nerdiness of nerd rock doesn't have to be in the lyrics. Sometimes you can just completely geek out on the other stuff too.
Yeah. So people using it from now on must call it number one.
Number one. Yeah.
Engage. Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk to you about Glimmer Shot and it's sort of its follow up, A Listener Mine. I really like these songs.
Thank you.
They caught the attention of the makers of the video game Destiny and became sort of viral video game anthems. So how did that come about?
At least with the Glimmer Shot, it's a slightly similar story, I guess, to Love Is Not Just Talk. I was of all things, I was having a shower, and the chorus kind of like just the chorus melody and some of the words kind of came to me, and it was like within a couple minutes I had that just the chorus bit like just fleshed out in my brain, and then I remember coming to Brock and saying, hey man, like I looked it up online. You and I have 2,500 hours each into Destiny. Like, I think we need to write a Destiny song. And I think I've got a chorus that's going to get us like well on that way.
Yeah. And to Ian's point about the amount of time he played Destiny, I mean, we've made friends in Destiny, you know, it is a big part of our free time. So, one of the things about Glimmer Shot was it's really not about Destiny per se, but more the feeling that we got in discussing the song, like even when we're not playing the game. So after the Glimmer Shot kind of did its thing and, you know, became something that allowed us to connect with even more Destiny people, there was that sort of a demand we couldn't ignore to do something else in that vein. So A Listener Mine, unlike the Glimmer Shot, was a bit more about the video game, but again, to my points about just reciting proper nouns, you know, we tried to make it be a song that if no one had any idea what Destiny was, it would just sound like, you know, strange poetry, really. So with A Listener Mine, it was kind of hard to like distance ourselves from the game and reduce, you know, certain lore pieces and plot, if you like, to really general feelings. But I think we did a pretty good job towing that line between every line stands out as, you know, direct connections to the video game, but they're really not just, you know, saying Fatebringer, 1,000-Yard Stare, you know, Zavala. Like it's really, you know, what I think is the, you know, these universal feelings of be careful what you wish for, because sometimes you get it, right?
Well, and I think too what's a really cool part about both of those songs and the Glimmer Shot, I think, in particular, is it's managed to hit radio fairly consistently in our region. And you know, we saw the numbers when it went viral, and you certainly are aware that it's a song that has done well. But I don't think we ever imagined how it would affect like the non-nerd world. And we wound up doing this kind of really cool like acoustic show in Ottawa. It was put together through the radio station. And we were opening for a band called Monster Truck of all bands. And we did this acoustic version of the Glimmer Shot, and it was incredible to have, I forget the capacity. There's like 350 people in that room just singing the Glimmer Shot.
A song about Destiny.
Yeah. A song about Destiny that, you know, I'm sure most of them haven't played Destiny, but each of them have found their kind of own reason to like that song. They've found themselves in it. And so I think that's what's really cool about not just those songs, but like music in general is people will find themselves in a piece of music.
And you know what, when Ian and I, you know, earned the movie of the week and played at the Destiny convention, that was almost not really a surprise because it made sense that a song about destiny, found its audience in those eras. But the moment we played that show that Ian's talking about was the moment I actually felt the success, because, however many plays it got online is just, the Destiny community being awesome. But to have room full of real people in a completely non-Destiny nerdy context, that was like a victory for Ian and I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's pretty awesome. I mean, I've never played Destiny, but those songs speak to me in such a way. I'm pretty sure they're going to be added to my soundtrack for my writing.
Exactly. And again, yeah, we really want to make sure that the music we write doesn't alienate, but if someone looks deep enough, they can see either the game they love or just anything else because again, music is that art form that people will put all kinds of, attributions into that might not be there, but it's not up to us to say it is there or isn't there,
That's true. Okay, so you guys have released your music on trading cards. How does that work? How does that work?
In so many words, we saw this trend. It was about 2013 when we started doing the trading cards, and there was like the vinyl resurgence was well underway. There was even bands releasing cassettes and stuff, and we, considering that most cars don't even have a CD player, let alone a vinyl player or a cassette player, we were left thinking, why are people collecting music they can't actually listen to or play in a device? And we started looking at things in the nerd world that people collect, whether it was pogs or anything. And we sort of, settled on trading cards. Like I used to love playing, Pokemon cards and Magic cards and stuff like that. So we figured it would be a way to encourage fans to, like, because if we had these different, designs on each card, fans could trade amongst them. And it was just a way to encourage, like, if all of you guys are at a double experience show, you have far more in common than you think. Start talking to each other, and maybe these cards can be that catalyst to, for collectors to not only feel an ownership of the music in a unique way, but make some friends and,
Is there like a Brock rookie card or something?
It wasn't us per se, or like anything like that. We worked with a guy from Amsterdam to make these like basically adult Pokemon, not like sexy Pokemon or anything, but like we were like, if Pokemon are monsters that appeal to kids, what would be some monsters that would appeal to grown adults? And
that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And
then go ahead, Ian.
I was gonna say I think it was pretty funny that when we started doing it, because people just hadn't seen it. So they'd have this, I mean, this isn't a card, but they'd have this card and they'd be like, so how does it fit in my CD player? And we're like, no, it doesn't go in the CD player. Yeah, it's a download. So, but it was a lot of fun to kind of pilot that project, because when people realize what it is at the merch table, you can see their faces just like, like that's so cool. And so, like Brock said, it's like we grew up collecting, so it just made sense for the band.
No, it makes sense, right? Has it been successful?
Yeah, like we don't currently have plans to do like the third series of the cards, only because we recently signed to a label, and they, to their credit, like they're in the business of selling physical music, not trading cards. They're not tops or anything, so it was a bit of a hard sell to say. This worked for us. We want to still be able to grow, but we've been having these like release shows mostly based in Ottawa for like the core double experience fans. So we've been offering recently just exclusives and of variants where the first 30 people in line get the limited edition, and then it at least might encourage people to make that trek too. It's almost like we liken it to seeing a team play on home ice. It can't just be like seeing the team play anywhere else. So it's the trading cards might evolve to something that's specifically for making Ottawa shows extra special, but we'll have to just see as the new record or future records,
That's cool.
coalesce.
Yeah. All right. So what's something you wish you'd known about music before you embarked on this journey?
Music theory. Absolutely, like hand over my heart. I wish I really had committed to my my studies of understanding, how the circle of fifths works and just understanding like modal interchange and all this stuff, because it's like that's stuff that Brock and I have had to learn now over the course of our journey, as opposed to it's like we have it at the start. Because I think it could have allowed us to create a whole bunch of different pieces of music years ago. Yeah, everything works out as it is, so that's okay. But yeah, certainly music theory.
Yeah, I completely agree, because the songwriting has become like, at least just understanding that mechanism. It's just as fascinating as it is enjoyable to actually write the songs themselves. So I think it's just it was a very humbling experience to know that we actually know nothing when it comes to why we make the decisions we make in the songs that we've written. So it's been important to us, the last like 2 years, I'd say, to just completely revert to a state of let's learn everything all over again and then apply that to songs, as opposed to try and write a song and make it better by throwing theory at it,
Yeah. All right. So you're doing this full time now, right?
Yeah.
Essentially. How do you integrate your music into your daily life? If you
it might sound weird for some people when they hear us say that we actually do try and schedule a lot of the creativity. And what I mean by that is, when we wrote and recorded the last session we did in February, that wasn't just as soon as we got to the amount of songs we needed, we just went in. We needed to write 40 songs surplus, and we'll tell anyone, for every one song we release, we write 3 of the worst garbage you could ever imagine to hear. And that's a lot of, it's good. It saves tape. One, you get to, demonstrate your ideas in a demo sense, go, why that clearly doesn't work. And then, as opposed to having Ian imagine what a song could sound like, you're actually being able to dissect a real thing and ideally, hopefully improve it. So if we don't at least practice the habit of writing songs regularly, it's just you can't always rely on the ceiling to open up and inspiration to hit you. So we constantly keep that muscle, if you like, always working and trying to write a song. So yeah, a lot of the stuff like A Listener Mind, for example, was literally like we sat there in front of the computer and said, we just built hooks like that was like a one-day thing. We just sat down in front of GarageBand and insisted we would have a song by the end of it. And because of, by Ian and I just being inspired on the hook of the day and the idea of the day, it wasn't like, okay, stop, let's go and research what chord progressions are in this key. It was very much like that was like the most modern application of what we were learning at the time. And it was all what we call, logic, where we just, if a song has these components, it cannot have these components. And those sort of like restrictions and like observations were very freeing, because we could get to the end point faster. And that was an example of a song. Yeah, we just, when we got to the ending, we're like, we did it. Don't remix it. Don't redo it. Like this was born from intention. And we can't argue with, what happened afterwards. So
yeah, I think like the process that Brock and I have sort of whittled out between each other has allowed us to, almost say, no excuses, right? I think I certainly used to sit there and just waiting for the skies to open up, like, please today. But I think as you work more with songwriting and you try and create every day, knowing on the back of at least my head, I have to show Brock something next week. Like I need something. It's allowed both of us, I think, to like break through any sort of writer's block that could exist, because it, like Brock said, it is logic after a certain point. And I think that's been one of the biggest surprises of doing it the way we do, just because you hear all the time of, oh, well, writer's block got me and all that stuff. And I don't think we've really had too many situations where we've sat there for like 5 hours in front of a blank page going, I don't know what to do.
So it helps you to have someone to be accountable to, you would say.
Yeah. And that very clear schedule of this is when we're, pursuing creativity, and this is when we aren't pursuing creativity. Because if everyone is relying on the ceiling to open up when they least expect it, then it's good to have moments where a clear line in the sand of where you will start to not expect things. Because then maybe if the paradigm of ceilings opening up and a beam of light coming through exists, and that only happens if you firmly go, I have times when I'm working and times when I'm not.
Right. So how do you deal with those moments of block or stress or whatever obstacles when they come up, if they come up?
I've never fought through it successfully. That's just my moment to go, like, read a book, listen to something, watch a show, because it's a losing battle. Like, it's unless you're going to. There's like, because we've written many songs many ways. There's been songs where someone's practically tapping the watch, going, "You have to finish the song. You need track 11." It's like we've done that. We've locked ourselves in the room, like, quite literally. There's a story, where our drummer was, like, at the time bugging us for something, and we had to lock him out of the room so Ian and I could finish the song. I still remember that.
I do too.
We were, like, just marveling at how every time we tried to write it, it was like a phone call. Okay, go back. Okay, someone made lunch. Okay, go back. The drummer wants something. We were like, can we just, like, we need an hour to finish the song. And so we know what that's like. And so because we want to avoid that, by always writing, we at least have an idea that's 70% done and you're finishing it, instead of an idea that's 0% done and it has to be 100% done in an hour.
Yeah. I feel like, just because of this whole process, I think we've gotten to a point where, because we are consistently creative, our brains are now hardwired to be creative a lot more. I mean, I think my brain is a pinball machine when it comes to just thinking about music, and I could do this and I could do this. And I think the hard part is writing it down and being, what is it that I'm going to create today? Because it can go anywhere, right? When you have three chords and the truth in front of you, it really can become anything.
All right. What would you say is your favorite aspect of making music?
I mean, I think for me, it is the writing of it. Like, it's that pragmatic chaos of, because, just because we did certain things on the Glimmer Shot or a Listener Mine, that doesn't mean we just, are showering for 6 hours a day because we come up with good songs in the shower. Like, it's always different. So that, like, adrenaline rush of like, how will this next song come to be and how will it turn out? That's more fun to me and more gratifying than, again, like, I'm sure people assume, or maybe it's true, that some bands are just having a party in the studio, it's just, and then suddenly the record happens. But at least in our experience, it's very, like, we're just executing. It's not creative. We're just, these are my parts. I got to record those parts, move on to the next song, get out of there as quickly as possible, because, songwriting's free to do. Studio time costs money. So I have learned to enjoy those songwriting periods far more than, like, the stress of, like, racing against the clock and your wallet.
Yeah. I think it's exactly that. I mean, it's the creation of all of it, right? It's learning a new piece to the puzzle of a new way to create, like, a bridge, and then going, okay, well, I learned that a cool bridge is like a first, a third, a fifth, and a seventh, all major chords. So a major seventh chord. So if that's the case, how can we build a song around this, like, interesting musical piece? And then it's applying all that kind of stuff and taking what you've learned and putting it into, like, real practice.
So, least favorite. Is there something that frustrates you about making music?
I don't think, I don't get frustrated because I think if I didn't like the songwriting part, we would just be professional Destiny players instead of people that write songs about Destiny. You know what I mean? It's like that to me is as fun as the person I mentioned who bird watches. Like they, I mean, maybe the frustrating part will be when you think you have a great idea and it becomes very apparent that you have a long way to go in it. You know what I mean? Like you show the group or you show, our extended team of managers and the label now, just here's what we're working on. And they're like, all right, well, we can talk about this other thing. And you're like, oh, damn it. You know what I mean? Thinking you have it and then having it proven to you that you have a lot of work to do is crushing, but it's not like, you don't just pack a shot because of it. You just roll up your sleeves and try again,
Yeah, I think there's a certain amount of anxiety on my end when show and tell day comes, because I've just spent the last week, 2 weeks, month, or whatever, just on this idea. This is the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, okay, let's go in. And I'm like, Brock, understand my genius. And so it's always that feeling of okay, did I just waste 3 weeks of my life working on something that's a dud, or is it something that's really, really cool? And I think it's we've always said there's no bad ideas. You don't write a bad song on purpose. And I think that every idea can get rescued. So thankfully, even if, one of us brings a dud into practice, it's we will still get something out of it. And previous songs have started as duds and turned out to be some popular pieces of music.
But those 20 minutes of silence after showing a demo are the worst. It's just everyone knows that the mark was missed, and someone has to be the first to say, all right, well, good thing we have this other song to work on. Yeah, it's just that's the way it is, right? Because we wouldn't get anywhere if we just said yes, great job on all the songs, you're infallible. So it's Ian and I have a good relationship now where we're able to just call it like it is and go, as Ian said, not throw it away, but if we don't do this, we're going to throw it away.
Well, that makes sense. And that's kind of cool, right? You don't want too many yes men around you just being this is awesome. I mean, it's actually awesome.
No, it doesn't lead to a good product.
No.
I mean, it's funny you say that because the other way, we've had some songwriting partners where they're no men. It doesn't matter what you bring, it's just no, that's not going to work. Let's not even try that. How about we just try this and not even, because I'd rather, the rule Ian and I have is I'd rather say, well, that didn't work instead of that's not going to work. It's chances are it'll take 10 minutes to truly see someone's idea through. But so there's as much to be said about being a no person as there is being a blind yes person. So, and you're only going to find out how much you save either, with the right writing partner.
That's true. All right. So we've covered a lot, I think, already, but do you have any advice for people who want to start out in making music?
I mean, other than learn theory, because that's clearly, what Ian and I are realizing. Yeah, you have to love it, because even though for Ian and I, the songwriting and creativity is a large part of our day, there will be entire weeks and months where you're not creative and it's very spreadsheet driven. If you're on tour, it's an hour-long show, but 6 hours of travel, setup, waiting. So it's the whole gig. I mean, in very rare instances of just being a professional songwriter, doing what Ian and I do, which is writing songs with the intent of releasing and performing them, it's not just the one fun thing. It's everything, and you really have to kind of make peace with, the existence of being a creative musician. An original musician is not just, as I said, 6-hour-long showers and viral video game anthems. It's a lot of other aspects to it that are fundamentally uncreative.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. You have to be prepared to do the hard work. Any artist you've ever heard who's made it, if you want to use that term, and I think that's a misnomer, but any artist that you've ever thought of that's made it, like, they work so hard. There aren't accidents, one hit wonders maybe, but the lifers, like, they work hard every single day. I think Brock and I have met so many artists who are just there for the party. They're there to be seen, and it's not built on substance. It's built on a false castle of appearance. And I think that's such a danger for artists. And yeah, like, you have to love it because the hard work is hard, but it's rewarding at the end of the day when you look back on, I mean, at least for Brock and I, it's going to be possibly 18 months between when we started working on the record to releasing it, like, from the first song. So it's like, you're able to look back on that and go, you know what? Like, I feel really accomplished, and that is so rewarding, and that it's worth the journey to get there.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. So how can people find out more about you guys?
The website's a good place to start. It's www.2xexperience. That is probably, like, the biggest hub of, if you're an Instagrammer, you will find our Instagram there. If you're a Twitter person, you'll find our Twitter there. And I don't know, we have a Wikipedia now, apparently, so you can...
It's true, you're on Wikipedia.
So if it's not there, I guess it's probably unofficial or something. So it's... like, finding out everything there is to know about Double Experience is not as hard as it used to be with our old band names, because people would search those and find like 100 other bands. So at least, the very least, if someone wants to know more about Double Experience, we are very easy to find.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you come up first.
Good.
Yes.
So
if you went first, you're last.
So what's coming up for you guys? You have some shows, I think, right?
We do. We're hitting the road with Danko Jones, who is practically our hero. He is our hero. He's a blue-collar Canadian musician who has a license to play pretty much anywhere in the world that he wants to, which is exactly what we want. We did record new music. I had no idea when it's going to come out, but it's been recorded at least. I think that's about all we have in the works.
That's cool.
That we can talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a whole lot that we can't talk about.
Stuff. I understand.
We can revisit in a couple months, and we'll.
Exactly.
We'll cover the rest of it.
All right. Cool. All right. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been Everyday Expertise.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this interview. Be sure to share this video with friends and colleagues who may also enjoy this topic. Let us know your thoughts by leaving a comment below, or check the description for our social media. See you next time.